From rivers and wetlands to forests and coastlines, we know that connecting with nature through exploration, including photography, is one of the best ways to conserve these special places. We recognize that photography is more than art. It is a way to capture moments that tell stories and inspire action. We host an annual photo contest to bring together photographers of all skill levels, from beginners to experts, to highlight the beauty of wildlife and landscapes and offer a platform to introduce others to conservation. We were blown away by thousands of incredible photos submitted for this year's theme, Florida in Focus, including a few that we are highlighting now. Our expert judges had the difficult decision of choosing winners, and we would like to thank them for volunteering their time and expertise. Thanks to Liz Atterbury, Peter Gerbert, and Federico Acevedo. Today, we're honored to be joined by three of our photo contest winners. We have Parks Marilla. He is a wildlife photographer based out of West Central Florida. His photograph of a gopher tortoise won first place in our wildlife category. Marcos Rodriguez is a wildlife photographer based in Central Florida. His photograph of a Florida scrub jay took home first place in the birds category. And finally, we have Stan Cottle. He is a landscape and architectural art photographer in Northeast Florida. His image of Amelia Island earned him first place in the landscape category.
Yes.
What about you, Stan? Can you share a little bit more about your background and when you became interested in wild Florida?
Absolutely. My career has been marketing communications, and in doing that, I create motion film, video, and commercial photography for clients, corporate clients. It wasn't until I went out in nature in Florida with my father-in-law, Len Messinio, he actually opened my eyes, quite literally, to how beautiful wild Florida is and how wonderful it is to be able to capture it, your perspective on that with a camera. So I've been hooked on it since then, and it's growing. It started as a hobby, and it's grown into some gallery representation and some sales of my work. So it's a direction I look forward to deepening as I go forward.
That's great. Yeah, we have a lot to think when we think about the people that first introduced us to photography. So I would love to know what's everyone's favorite subject to photograph?
I love landscape photography mainly because I want to share it with people. I want other people to see what I'm seeing while I'm there, and just how you feel when you're in a beautiful place, especially at the right time of day. Um, and aside from that, really in conjunction, I love architecture, and that comes from having studied it and having worked around it quite a bit in my career. And again, it ties in design and beauty, it's man-made beauty, but it also involves history. And so those two genres are my chief efforts. I do dabble in other things. One of my favorite living things to photograph, believe it or not, are alligators. So you have to have a long lens and good shoes so you can stay out of harm's way. But I enjoy being in the swamp and capturing those guys, and they're amazing. So it's all good.
Yeah, I love that. You all have such a diverse, perspective, a diverse amount of, interests of subjects that you enjoy. So uh, really, really thankful. So we're going to move into kind of an individual image discussion of the actual winning photos that each one of you had submitted into our photo contest. So we're going to start with Stan's image. He submitted his photo of a expansive salt marsh in Amelia Island, and this won first place in our landscape category. Stan, can you share a little bit more about your image?
Absolutely. Amelia Island is a barrier island, and it's one of the sea island chains that run from Amelia all the way up into South Carolina. Barrier islands are super important because they protect the mainland from the ocean and the weather and erosion and so forth that happens. So Amelia is gifted with this beautiful ocean front, and I spent a lot of time on the beach and photographed the beach. and it has its certain feel and energy. And then you go to the west side of the island and you see something like this. This is a beautiful salt marsh. This is part of a park called Drummond Point Park, which is on the south end of Amelia Island. And the whole goal of shooting this type of image is to put the viewer in this place. And so you have this vanishing point perspective of the built boardwalk going over beautiful nature. And so that's the goal. You want the viewer to take a little trip through the image, starting at the end here and ending up all the way out. And coincidentally, being out at the end of this dock is pretty amazing too, because you really feel like you're just floating above this vast green space in the marsh. So I spent a lot of time in Drummond Point Park and around the south end of Amelia. And in this particular day that I took this photo, I was actually touring another photographer that I'd met at the Shrimp Festival, which is a local art festival and seafood. And we were just going around. And of course, I'm going to take him to Drummond. It's one of my favorite spots. And I knew we were there at the right time of day and so forth. And so he's very excited about this setting. And he's over, setting up his gear and his tripod and all this stuff. And I just basically politely leaned over his back and handheld this shot. Then I showed it to him off the back of the camera and he goes, "Oh, well, we can go now." but it just captures how you feel when you see this view. And there are so many of these views. And it's just an idyllic place. It just makes you relax and enjoy nature.
I agree. I mean, I might be biased living in North Florida, but this is one of my favorite views. And this one in our landscape category, but it also shows, as a human, how we can fully immerse ourselves in a landscape. You can just imagine walking to the end of that boardwalk and just looking, out to this expansive, another iconic view of Florida. So it captures just a lot of great elements that showcase wild Florida. Are
Thank
there
you.
any are there any technical aspects that you would like to share that went into capturing this?
Sure. I mean, I did, again, I grabbed this really on the fly, which
Hmm.
it cracks me up. But when I'm out on a location, I will set my camera. I run everything in manual. Landscape photographers can do that. But we don't have to focus on eyes moving, which is stunning to me to be able to do that. But no, I run everything on manual. I kind of preset. I look at the day, I measure the light, and I preset the camera so that I can be ready to capture something as it strikes me. Usually, I would use a tripod for this shot. This happens to be handheld, so I had a fast enough shutter speed to capture everything sharply, and it got the horizon right and all those things that normally a tripod would lend those elements to. So my recommendation for anyone who wants to go out in nature and take a photo like this, certainly take whatever camera you have. It doesn't have to be a full frame digital camera, which is what I use for this. It could be your phone, and it could be the best camera you have is the one you have with you, right? So if you just take your time and just feel the image and get a sense of place, everything kind of falls in.
That's a great point. You can prepare and have the most expensive gear and everything, but when you just truly feel immersed in a place, it can still produce some really great photography. So thank you for sharing your image. I would love to know. One of you had already touched on this already, but how do you balance trying to live in the moment while also wanting to capture this? I know that this tends to be a struggle with a lot of photographers.
Marcos, you hit something that I think is a valid point for anyone wanting to capture an image is preparation. Um, if you're prepared, then you'll typically have a sense of what it is you want to capture, where you want to go to capture it, and what time you want to be there to best capture it. And if you do those things, when you get there, then having prepared, you can relax and wait for the right moment. And that patience with all backed by the preparation, is how you get an artful image.
Yeah,
While
you're
still
correct.
enjoying the moment too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
That's great. I think you all have touched on this a little bit. But do you have any other tips for people for photographing in the outdoors? Are there any, insider tips that you'd like to share?
One lesson I learned early on in shooting in Florida, you have to dress properly. I was taking photos in this beautiful space called a cypress dome, and you basically are walking around in this protected floor of a swamp, and it's all cypress trees, but it's dry. The bed was dry, and I just loved it. I was there a couple of hours, got some great shots. And on the way home, I realized, because I had on shorts, that I brought some friends home with me. And so I learned you have to cover your body as much as you can to, and remain comfortable. But you have to protect yourself from the environment. Certainly bug spray, but dress appropriately for the environment. That's true. I mean, I have a quick story where I was in the wetlands area, a place called Wildlight, and I'm on this wooden platform. It's like a little dock, but it's right on the water. And I have a long lens, and I'm shooting actually vegetation and some turtles across this pond. And they were out in it was water lily time in the blooms, and also I'm really on the long end of the lens. And I see something out of the corner of my eye, and I look out, and there's an alligator in the pond coming right at me. So I swing the camera over, and I was able to take shots of him as he approached where I was standing. And I looked down and realized, okay, he can't get up in this where I am, so I'm good to stay here the way it was built. And he came all the way up and just waited. He thought I had food. I guess someone had been feeding him. And so he came up. I got some beautiful shots, just head-on shots with a long lens. But he was unexpected, but I was able to embrace that unexpectedness and get some great shots, and figured out a little bit more about him as he came up. Didn't have any food for him and wouldn't have fed him if I did.
Good, good. I think all of you touched on this, but being prepared and treating photography just as any other recreation in Florida, safety is number one priority. Leaving no trace, respecting wildlife. It's really important to treat it just like any other recreation, and it can be grueling, just as hiking. You got to fully prepare like you're out there exploring. So thank you for all this advice. I think there's a lot of tips here for photographers. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to add about using photography to promote conservation?
Well, my whole purpose in being a nature photographer or an art photographer is to capture images of our natural environment and show them to other people, share them, so that they appreciate our environment and not want to bulldoze an area and build condos, for an example. That they would slow down and just appreciate what's there, and hopefully go out and witness it for themselves because they saw an image.
And hopefully, you're all capturing these images that we're hoping that future generations will be able to enjoy. So you're capturing this image in time to continue to protect these places and these species. And thank you, on behalf of conservationists everywhere. That's really important. Thinking back, when you had started wildlife photography, what's one piece of advice you wish you had?
Start with a mentor. Go with a photographer who has more experience and learn from them, because photography can be a science, but it's also an art. And I think a mentorship is so important, to just transfer that knowledge from someone who has experience to someone who's eager to learn it. And once you get over the initial challenge of managing a device, a camera, and you get past that, the tool now is in your hand. The fun And the passion comes from capturing something that you experience so you can share it with someone else. Mentorship is a key to speed that up.
That's a great point. You know, something we don't always think about. There's a lot of people out there that could help us along in our journeys. So, great advice. Thank you all. We have a couple questions on deck from our audience. So we're going to start with the first one. What is one photo that you're still chasing or trying to get of wild Florida?
I actually had this shot that I wanted badly for years. And I was able to achieve it finally. But the shot was, you know, from walking on the beach. I like to walk on the beach around sunrise. And often I would see, well, not often, but sometimes I would see a flock of pelicans skimming just above the surface of the water. And then the leader would come up and they would all follow him and make this beautiful arcing dance with the sunrise behind it. And I tried it so many times. Most of the time I saw that I didn't have a camera. But when I did, I finally got the shot. It took me about 5 years to actually capture that shot. So that felt good.
We do have a question from Kate on Facebook about mentorship. Where can we find a mentor? Do you have any photo like meetup groups, or do you have any other examples of that, Stan?
Most communities have camera clubs, and that's a collection of photographers of all skill levels. That's a good place to start. And they have occasionally, I know on Amelia, but also in Illinois when I lived there, the camera clubs will occasionally invite the public to go out on a walk around, and it is a way to introduce a newcomer to photography. So yeah, camera clubs.
Collaboration is key. I like how you touched on, you know, being able to talk about your images with other photographers. That's a great way to improve. We have a question from YouTube. From CU on YouTube, how do you prepare to locate your subjects in the wild? So does anyone have any insight to, you know, research before you go out?
If you want to capture an image of, let's say, an animal in the wild, I would suggest going to a preserve area or a state park or whatever and talk to the staff there, because they know, first of all of what's there. They know who's there when, and they also can guide you, you know, in how to find them.
Well, I think we've reached that point. I hate to end this conversation. It's been so great. But we are at that time where we're going to have to wrap up. So I do want to highlight that, you know, this has been just an incredible conversation. We'd like to thank each of you again for your participation tonight and taking the time to be with us. And congratulations again on your wins. And we're just so happy to have you in our conservation community.